Hey there, my name's Brashler, and in this video I want to talk to you about scenes and recall safe on the Waves LV1 Classic. Now, scenes are very powerful until they accidentally change something that you don't want it to change. And in this video, I'm going to be covering all of that. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident with your production gear no matter where you're starting. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, with the Waves LV1 Classic and the LV1, we have our scenes, which are built into our show tab. So if you click into show, over here on the left-hand side is scenes. And the scenes that the LV1 Classic and the LV1 can handle is up to 1,000 scenes. So you have a lot of options as far as what you want to do with scenes. Now, what are scenes? Well, scenes allow us to save all of the parameters of your channels and everything into a slot. And then you can save another set of things into another slot or into another scene here. So you can have multiple scenes to be able to recall specific things that are happening during your show. Maybe a song 1. You have a vocal 1 that's leading, and then song 2, you have vocal 2 leading. Well, scenes are one way of being able to keep organized with that, so you don't have to have your show completely memorized. You can just use the scenes to help you recall the specific things that you need to have happen during your show. Now, there's another thing that we need to talk about, and I'm going to dive into it in very big detail, but that is recall safe. And the recall safe is very important because this allows you to protect certain parameters of your board so that when you're recalling scenes, even if you have a scene set up incorrectly, it will not change that. So one perfect example is your main left-right feed to all of the rest of the destinations. Maybe you're using some of the matrices for feeding your PA or feeding an online stream. Those are things that you don't want to have accidentally changed during your show. Also, one thing that you could protect is the preamp gain. And that way, as you're going through all of the scenes, you don't have to worry about your preamps getting changed mid-show. So that's what we can do with recall safe and scenes. But let's actually dive in to really see how we can make this thing function. Now, if you go to scenes, my suggestion is to create a new scene and have it save all of the parameters on your board. So I'm just going to press new. And I'm just going to title this Show Starting Settings. Now, by default, it selects everything on your screen. So you can see everything from your scope, and we have our name, preamp, input, matrix input, our pan, routing, mute, fader, rack, effects mon, output, link mute. We have our plugins and our dynamics, our EQ, filters, Dugan, and then here are all of our channels, as well as our groups, our effects, our monitors, and our link DCAs, as well as our main buses here, and our matrix section. So we can see that this would save all of the parameters for everything, which is great. Because when I'm wanting to have this first scene, this should have all of the settings of my board that I'm wanting to save specifically for my channels. So that way, when I know that I have everything set, I can just save this, and whenever I recall, it will recall my preamp, my names, my inputs, everything. Now, when I am saving a scene for, say, a song, I'm wanting to have it save a few things. I'm wanting to have it save the mute, the fader position, and the panning, because those three things are the main things that I want to have set as a new song is starting. So let's go ahead and get my board set up in the way that I would for this first song. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my lead vocal is vocal 1, and I'm going to pull these other vocals down, and it needs a little bit more guitar, a little less bass, and then I'm actually going to unmute all of my DCAs, so now my board is unmuted. And I can go and see that I have all of my setup here, and it's already ready for this song 1. Now what we do is go to show. I'm going to create a new scene. And so this scene name is going to be song 1. And then I'm going to put a little note in here, the Vox 1 leads. And there we go. And then there's also a notes section down here. And so I can click into this and put lead vocal is vocal 1, and then guitars up, bass down. So I can put a few notes in here and I can have all of the notes that I need to know about this specific song saved in this note section for this song 1. Now I need to make sure that my scope of this scene is recalling the specific things that I want it to. And so right now, if I pressed load on this scene, it would change everything that I have selected here on my scope. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press all, and that way it's going to deselect everything. So right now, if I recalled this, it would recall nothing because nothing is selected. But at this point, I'm going to go and select all of my channels here. And this is going to take a little bit. And then the next thing I'm going to do is select all of my groups and my effects, anything that I am using for mixing, including my DCAs. But I'm not going to select any in-ears or wedges or anything like that unless there were specific song-to-song things that I needed to save for the band with changing their in-ears, which I can absolutely do if I need to. But in this case, I'm just going to select my channels and anything that I'm used for actively mixing. Now, I am not going to include my left-right, any of my matrices, any of my routing like that that's actually distributing my audio out to the PA because I don't want to save over that stuff when I'm recalling song-to-song changes. Now that I have all of these channels selected, the next thing that I need to do is I need to select what of these channels I'm wanting to actually recall. In this case, I'm going to select pan, mute, and fader. Now that I have done this, just for fun, I'm going to press store to make sure that I'm storing this information. Now, when you store a scene, it's taking a snapshot of everything on the board at that moment. And then you can adjust what you want to recall from that specific scene using your scope. Now, let's go ahead and get this for song 2. Now, song 2, I actually have vocal 2 is going to be leading, and there's going to be a lot of bass and a little less electric guitar and some more keys for this. It's also pretty tracks heavy. Now that I have this set, I can go ahead and press new, and we can call this song 2. And this is going to be Vox 2 leads. Okay, and because we had our scope set for the current scene that we were on, it copied over our scope settings for the next song of this scene that we just saved. Now maybe this next song for song 3 is going to be just acoustic guitar and keys driven, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn my tracks and everything else down here, and we have vocal 1 and 2 leading this together. So I have this now set, and I'm just going to press new again, and we can call this song 3, and this is Vox 1 and 2 leads. Perfect. So we now have our 3 songs here. We have song 3, song 2, and song 1, and then we have, again, our show starting settings. Now, let's go ahead and run through these real fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Mixer 1, and we can just watch this as I'm paging through these different scenes. Now, there is this section right up here that I can go and recall scenes from this specific portion of the board. So I can do this little drop down, and then I can go to my different scenes. So for instance, I can go directly to my show start settings. Now, one way that I like to utilize my user keys is I like to have 15 and 16 being my scene change buttons. And so I can go click into user and we can see previous scene and my next scene right here on these 2 buttons. Now, another place that you can put this is on your shortcuts. Now, there's 2 ways to being actually able to program these, which I'm going to cover real fast, and that is in setup and then UI settings. And this is where we can select 15 and 16 being our previous scene. So to do this, we can go scenes and then we can go previous scene, and then on 16, I can click down and then we go scenes and then next scene. Now, to adjust our shortcut buttons, we would need to go into our system inventory from setup, and then we would click on this little gear icon and it brings up our shortcuts right here. So currently I have my button 1 as my talk, but if I wanted to have this doing scenes, then I can go to scenes and do this as my scene previous and my next if I want to, but currently I'm just going to leave that as my talk button. So let's go back to Mixer 1, and I now am going to use these user buttons to just navigate through these different scenes. So now I'm ready for song 1, band's up on the stage, they're ready to go. I'm just going to press next scene. And here we go. So here I have now loaded into song 1, and I know that my vocal 1 is leading this, and we have all of our boards set and ready to go. And once this song finishes, then I can just go next scene, and then here are my starting settings for this song. Now, one thing I do want to mention about scenes is they are an instant recall, so there is not a crossfade currently programmed in any of the functionality with these scenes. So just make sure that you're doing this at quiet moments rather than while the band is playing, because if you did it while the band is playing, it's going to be an instant recall, therefore adjusting the gain on, all of our faders up immediately when you recall it. So just keep that in mind. Now, then we have our song 3, which was a duet between 1 and 2 on my vocals, and then all of the rest of the band was kind of turned down. So here we go, just like that. Now, say you have an acoustic guitar change. Well, that acoustic guitar is going to have slightly different sounds than the first guitar. And so let's actually go set up a save scene that recalls specific settings for that acoustic guitar. And let's program this as part of song 4. So let's go ahead and do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find my acoustic guitar, and that's going to be right here. And I'm going to go in and make some adjustments here. So I'm going to turn this EQ on, and maybe I need to adjust my gate down just a little bit and the compressor down. And so this looks pretty good. I'm going to turn that off. So here we have, some new EQ and some new compressors set for this acoustic guitar. And maybe we have a little bit of trim adjustment. Now, obviously, if I was controlling a preamp, this would be the preamp gain on this acoustic guitar. So I've made all the settings that I need to change. And maybe what I can do is up here, I can just rename this to be acoustic guitar and then 2, like that, because it's going to be a different guitar. So now that I've changed everything that I want to about this specific channel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my show and I'm going to press new. Now, this is going to be song 4, and this is vocal 3 leads plus acoustic guitar change. So as we can see, I have my song 4. Now, this has saved everything that there is that was on this board at this moment, which I did forget to adjust my vocals. So let's go ahead and do vocal 3, and this is full band, but acoustic guitar is up a little bit more. Okay, just like this. So now I'm going to just press store again on this because I needed to have those new settings done. Now, there is inside of the scope a filter button. And the filter button allows me to recall specific things on a channel by channel basis. So you do need to know what channel we need to adjust. In this case, I'm going to go find my acoustic guitar, which was here on channel 27. And we can see that listed right down here on the 27. So I'm going to go back to show, and in here, I'm going to press filter. Now, what I can do is I can go click into 27, and we can see that this is acoustic guitar 2. Now, I'm going to have this recall basically everything from this channel. So this would be the name, the preamp, the input. We have our plugins that needed to be adjusted, EQ dynamics, and we'll do that. Okay, so everything that was here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press OK. Now, we can see that 27 has a slightly different color than the rest of the channels that are on my show tab. Now, that is because the rest of the channels in this light blue are only recalling the global scope that's up here. But with this filter button selected, I was able to click into my acoustic guitar and change everything that there is about this, and I can then press OK. So let's go back up to the top here, and I'm just going to recall, and it's going to recall everything about my board. Now, if I go back to my mixer, I can go back into my acoustic guitar on the channel, and we can see that my trim is at 0, my HEQ is turned off, my dynamics is set a little bit higher for things, and let's go through this show again. So let's go to my next scene, and my faders, we'll get them back here. So we have this. Now here's the next song, and then song 3, and then when I load this song 4, it's going to change my fader positions, my mute positions, and my pan for all the channels, but then also it's going to pull up all of the dedicated settings that I had for my acoustic guitar. So let's go to the next scene, and boom. Now we can see my HEQ is inserted, my dynamics are adjusted a bit. There is a different name on this. My trim is adjusted by -3. And so this is how we can do a instrument change as part of a song and recall all of the settings of that song with our fader, pan, and mute. Now, obviously, I could go in and make a specific thing. So if I wanted to make some more adjustments, say on the bass guitar, I can go find my bass guitar right here. And on my channel, I can go and adjust whatever I want to. And I could save this as its own thing. So I could go new, and this is going to be bass guitar change. And then what I would do is I would just press all, and then I would undo this filter, reset to global here, and then I would go find my bass guitar, which this channel is channel 23. So right here, I'm going to go and go to channel 23, and then I could go and adjust all of this stuff. Just like that. So I can have this as its own thing that would recall just this. But having that filter as part of the scope makes it much more powerful of being able to recall those specific settings along with the change that's happening with the rest of that song change. That way we're just recalling one scene versus multiple scenes for, one song change. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is my recall safe. Now, my recall safe is very important because I can actually safe certain channels specifically that I want to make sure never change. For instance, a pastor mic or my handheld for my announcements. Those type of channels, I want to make sure that none is changed of those specific things. And so let's go find my pastor mic, which is right here. And this is channel 51. And then I also have channel 52 and channel 53. So 51, 52, 53 are all of my pastor and announcement mics. And I'm going to protect these 3 channels from any scene changes that can happen. So let's go to show. And then in Recall Safe, I'm going to select my filter, and I'm going to select these 3 channels. So I'm just going to go here to my pastor and select all. And then on my handheld 1, select all, and my handheld 2, select all. Now at this point, these 3 channels are saved from ever being updated or adjusted as far as the scenes go. Now, if you go and actually load up a new session, that session is going to be replaced by what is in that session. So recall safes are only as far as the scenes go, not the actual sessions. So keep that in mind. Now, the other thing that I want to make sure to completely recall safe is going to be my matrices. So here's my stream, and I'm just going to select all, and right here, I'm basically going to select all of my matrices to save these, as well as my left, right, my center, and my mono. So basically, my matrices and my left, right, center, mono are my system things. And I don't want my scenes changing my system settings. And then we have those 3 microphones with my pastor, my handheld 1, and my handheld 2. And I'm not wanting those to be updated by the scenes either. That way, when I set them, I know that unless I make a specific change to this channel of my pastor channel, none of the scenes will update what I have saved here, which is very important. Now, some things that are by default set is my routing. Now, the routing, if you turn this off, it's going to give you a warning that says toggling between scenes that use different channel routing may result in a short mute. This reflects an update for an automatic mix bus latency compensation, and some channels might have different latencies. So what it's saying is if you change routing by scene to scene, there can be a slight pause in mute. Now, the same thing goes for my link and DCA assignments and my mute group assignments. I'm just going to have those always on. That way, none of those are being updated. But by having those turned off, it won't give you a warning. It's mainly just the routing that's going to give you that issue if you have that set. But by default, I'll usually leave routing, my link and mute, and then my announcement channels, my main PA, as well as my main left, right, center, and mono buses. Now, another example of a recall safe is if you had a guest musician who was going to be singing on some of the tracks, and they were only coming in for this portion of, say, your tour. Well, in that case, I would go find their specific channel. So let's go find, and this is going to be on vocal 5. So here's my vocal 5, and I'm just going to retitle this as guest. And so here's my guest mic, and then inside of my show recall safe settings, I'm going to find my guest mic. So in this case, it is going to be channel 5, and I will go to my recall safe, go to filter, and select my channel 5, and then I'm just going to recall safe everything from this guest, and then press OK. And at this point, we've gone through sound check. I've made sure that that guest musician sounds great on that vocal. And now I know that my vocal 5 for that guest is not going to be touched by any of my scene transitions from song to song. Now, if I was fine with it being, updating on my pan, mute, and fader, I could just unselect those things, and then as my show is being recalled with my scenes, the fader, the pan, and the mute will be still adjusted for this vocal mic. But if we go to my scenes and I recall this, we will notice that this is still called guest. It's not called vocal 5 anymore. Now I can go here and we can go recall, and this will recall correctly. And we can see it here. As I'm adjusting this, it will go through and change my fader position. But if I wanted to, I could go to my show, recall safe, click into this channel with that filter on, and then I can go and turn those off. And at this point in my show, as I'm recalling this, it's always going to leave this channel undone. So if I go and recall, and if I recall, if I recall, all of this is going to be untouched. Now, one thing I do want to mention, as you can see, this is blinking. Now, because vocal 5 is adjusted by a DCA or a link group, then if you have a mute on that link group, it will obviously overwrite, your mute that you have on the channel. So just keep that in mind. But as we can see, scenes, recall safe, and especially that filter as far as the scope goes are super powerful with the LV1. I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you do happen to have any questions, or there's a video that you're hoping that I would make on the LV1 or really any production equipment that's out there, please post that in the comment section down below, as I'm always reading through those comments to find videos that are going to be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day.